Before cheating ever happens. Before the betrayal. Before the lies. Something far quieter takes place. A fracture. A shift. A subtle rearrangement of the mind that is almost invisible when it begins. Most people imagine cheating as a sudden act, a moment of weakness. A lapse in judgment, a reckless impulse. But in reality, cheating grows in the shadows. Not in the moment of action, but in the psychological groundwork that forms long before it. Tonight, we step into the dark psychology behind cheating and manipulation. A world where emotional needs, ego reinforcement, and distorted self-justifications quietly take shape without anyone noticing. This is the first fracture. Cheating rarely begins with attraction. It begins with distance. Not physical distance, emotional distance. A partner becomes quieter, less present, less emotionally available. Not in a dramatic way, but in small, accumulating moments. A delayed reply. A distracted tone. A subtle drop in warmth. This emotional dropout triggers a feeling called attachment erosion. A psychological slide where connection weakens without being consciously recognized. During this erosion, the brain starts searching for something to fill the newly formed emotional void. Not necessarily another person. Just something. A feeling. A validation. A sense of being seen again. This is the fertile ground where manipulation, internal or external, begins growing. Before a person cheats, their mind builds an internal narrative that makes the act feel acceptable. It doesn't happen all at once. It builds through microthoughts that start soft and become sharper over time. I'm not being appreciated. I'm tired of giving more than I receive. They don't understand me anymore. I deserve to feel something again. These thoughts are not inherently wrong, but the mind begins twisting them into a license. This cognitive process is called moral disengagement, where someone gradually disconnects from their own values to pursue a desire they don't want to admit. The most dangerous part. This shift is calm, quiet, rational sounding, almost hypnotic. Cheating doesn't feel like betrayal when it's wrapped in a story that paints the cheater as the one who's been deprived. This creates the psychological permission for the next phase. The first act of manipulation in cheating is not done to another person. It is done to the self. A person begins altering their own memories, their own emotions, their own interpretations of reality. Small flaws in the relationship become exaggerated. Moments of disconnection become proof of incompatibility. Their partner's imperfections are highlighted and replayed to weaken guilt. This is self-directed manipulation, soft, internal, almost soothing. It convinces the mind that drifting away is natural, logical, inevitable. And once someone manipulates themselves effectively enough, manipulating another person, or betraying them, feels less like a choice and more like a consequence. The mind clears a path long before the feet walk down it. This is the first fracture. The quiet beginning that leads to everything else. A soft, hollow feeling hangs in the background. Something is shifting, quietly, without warning. Before cheating ever becomes real on the outside, it begins inside the mind. A small emotional drift starts forming, almost invisible at first. The connection that once felt solid starts to weaken. Not with drama, but with slow, silent distance. Cheating isn't only an action. It's an emotional migration, a gentle but steady movement of attention, desire, and validation away from one person and toward someone else. And this shift is never clean, never honest, and never equal. Every cheater begins creating two emotional worlds. One world is the familiar relationship, safe, predictable, full of shared history. The other is the new emotional space, secret, exciting, filled with fantasy and possibility. To keep both worlds alive, the mind develops a quiet skill. It begins separating the two realities so they never touch. This is compartmentalization. The ability to switch between two emotional truths, as if they are separate rooms. In one world, they act loyal, supportive, committed. In the other, they feel alive, curious, and bold. Because these two selves never collide, the cheater starts to feel like two different people living inside one body. And the more they switch between these versions, the easier lying becomes. Guilt gets softer. Boundaries start to fade. As the emotional drift grows, something else begins to change. The cheater starts comparing their partner to the new person. Not logically, not fairly, but emotionally. They judge the familiar partner through the lens of the fantasy. And they judge the new connection through the flaws of the old one. Everything the partner does wrong feels bigger. Everything the new person does right feels brighter. This is selective valuation. An inner distortion, where the mind begins choosing which emotions to highlight and which to ignore. The scale is no longer balanced. It's tilted by desire, fueled by novelty, and strengthened by secrecy. With every comparison, the drift grows faster. As the two emotional worlds pull further apart, the cheater starts protecting the new world more fiercely. Not with honesty, but with control of the story. They begin shaping the narrative in quiet, subtle ways. They downplay their emotional distance. They justify sudden changes in behavior. They start small arguments that push blame outward. They accuse their partner of being too sensitive, too insecure, or too dramatic. These moves are not random. They are psychological. Shields meant to protect the secret world before anyone even suspects it exists. This is preemptive manipulation, controlling the story early, so the partner doubts themselves later. It lets the cheater appear calm and misunderstood while hiding a growing emotional divide. A low, heavy feeling hangs in the air. Something in the relationship is breaking, even if no one says it out loud. By the time cheating reaches the final stage, the cheater is already living in two separate worlds. One world is the life everyone sees. The other is the secret life they protect. They move between these two worlds so often that it feels normal to them. But two different realities can't stay separate forever. Sooner or later, they crash into each other. This stage isn't about getting caught. It's about the pressure of hiding the truth. It's about the fear of losing the secret world they built. Keeping two emotional lives alive takes a lot of effort. At first, cheating feels exciting, new attention, new feelings, the thrill of something hidden. But slowly, it becomes heavy. It feels like holding your breath for too long. To deal with this pressure, the cheater starts changing in ways that are easy to notice. They get defensive when asked simple questions. They protect their phone like it's a treasure. They avoid deep eye contact. They become distant, irritated, or overwhelmed easily. These changes are not random. They are signs that their mind is tired from pretending. They have to remember what lie they told, to whom, and when. This mental pressure pushes them into the most manipulative stage. When they feel even a little suspicion, or sometimes even before that, they try to protect themselves. Not by telling the truth. Not by facing what they've done. But by blaming the person they hurt. They say things like, "You're imagining things. You're too controlling. I can't breathe in this relationship. Why are you always accusing me? You make me feel unappreciated." This is called blame shifting. It's when the cheater makes the other person feel guilty for simply noticing the truth. It helps the cheater reduce their own guilt, confuse their partner, and keep the secret safe. The more the partner doubts themselves, the safer the cheater feels. This is not an accident. It's a tactic. And then comes the final part, changing the story. When cheating reaches its peak, many cheaters rewrite the story in a way that makes them look better. Not just to others, but to themselves. They say things like, "The relationship was already over. We were drifting apart. You stopped caring first. I didn't cheat. I just connected with someone." These new versions of the story make the cheater feel less responsible. They become the victim in their own mind. This rewrite helps them avoid guilt and avoid real accountability. In this collapse phase, they're not only hiding the truth, they're rebuilding it to protect their ego. And the partner is left questioning not just the relationship, but their own reality. This is the darkest part of cheating. The betrayal isn't only the act itself. It's the story that comes afterward, one that hurts the partner even more quietly, and even more deeply. This tactic protects their guilt and prepares the partner to question their own intuition. Because the deepest manipulation isn't lying. It's making someone doubt the truth happening right in front of them. The cheater quietly becomes the author of both realities. The world they show and the world they hide. And as these worlds drift further apart, the small fracture becomes a quiet, widening distance that no one notices until it's too late.